While you and I can't always control what grows, we can absolutely tend to the conditions that make thriving more likely. Hello, 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 and welcome to More Than Money, a podcast where we have nuanced conversations about money, business, and life, where we take the time to explore the human side of money because success with money is never just about the numbers. I'm your host, Jacquette Timmons, and whether this is your very first episode or one of many, I am really, really grateful that you have chosen to spend some time with me today. And as you know, or we'll soon find out, usually it is just me here on the mic. It's me sharing ideas and stories and reflections that are designed to help you see money through a more nuanced lens. But this past month, things have been a little bit different because I've been up to a few things. Like, I have had the joy of interviewing three incredible guests, and those powerful conversations are coming to you soon. We're talking about innovation, health, and cryptocurrency, and they have a lot more in common than you might think. So I just wanted to give you the heads up and invite you to stay tuned. But for now, let's get into today's show. I was 29 when I started my then registered investment advisory firm. And if you know my history, you know it was the whole shebang, registered with the SEC, everything. Now, my firm, and it has been that way for many, many years, is a human centered coaching and speaking practice that is designed to help high earning professionals and business owners and organizations explore the intersection of money, behavior, and life. And what I can say to you is that in hindsight, I can admit, pardon me, I still have that cough from this cold that will not leave me, but I'm not letting that stop me. But what I can say is that in hindsight, I can admit that back then, I had a heck of a lot more hubris than I probably should have for the undertaking that was before me. And on the flip side, not nearly enough wisdom to fully understand that quote unquote hard work doesn't always equal success. And it's something to really wrestle with, or that I've wrestled with anyway, because growing up, one of the many, many messages that I got from my mother and other elders in my life is that you have to work twice as hard. And if you know, you know what I mean by that. Excellence, diligence, and discipline all went hand in hand with hard work. And not only was that the messaging that I got at home, it overlapped with the cultural and societal messaging about who was successful and what it took to be so. Usually, often, I should say, skipping over the role of access, privilege, and systemic barriers. And it didn't help that, from the time I was 20 years old, I worked in an industry where that mindset permeated. It permeated throughout the financial industry, especially at institutions like where I worked, and where leaving the office at 11 p.m. or later was considered a badge of honor. And so I did not realize how deeply I held onto this belief until a coach that I worked with in the 90s asked me, "So, are you saying you don't deserve it because it was easy for you?" Now, his question came on the heels of me having shared that I had earned $10,000 for something that only took me 4 hours to create. And it felt weird. It felt weird to, not have felt like it was, a slog, and that I had to put in a lot of hours, and that it was really, really complicated. And he was the first person to ever suggest that what you earn doesn't have to be tied to how hard you work. And excuse me, I have been interrogating my relationship with what hard work means ever since. Is hard work a reflection of complexity or intensity? Is it time bound, connected to how long something took to complete or, just how long something takes? Is it a concatenation of all of these elements or is it something else entirely? And so I'm really curious, what does hard work mean to you? And what does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you measure it? And I ask in part because recently I was on your screen, perhaps if you watch us on YouTube, or definitely in your ear, asking if you've ever worked hard, done all of the right things, and still missed the mark. I brought it up then, and I'm doing so now because sometimes the outcomes, be it the financial, the business, or the personal outcomes, they don't match the seeds you and I thought we planted. And that makes me think of nature. Nature never forces its timeline, it follows a rhythm, not rigidity. And our own harvests, although we may not feel this way all the time, they work in much the same way. And I'm thinking about all of this because, at least here in the Northeast, fall is definitely upon us. Like today was like 40 degrees, bright and sunny, fall. And as I consider a day trip of apple picking, I'm thinking about harvesting. And just as a harvest unfolds in nature through a process of sunlight, rain, timing, and care, the quote unquote harvest that you and I experience unfolds through our own process of choices and timing and the systems we move within. And sometimes the fruits that you gather look exactly like what you imagined when you set your goals. Other times, and more often, what shows up is smaller, slower to ripen, or entirely different from what you planted. And that can be frustrating, especially when you have worked diligently and done, quote unquote, all the right things. But here's what's sobering: harvests are honest. They show you and me the truth of what's taken root, not just what we hoped would. And as best as I can tell, nature doesn't judge harvest. There's no, that was a good harvest, or that was a bad one. And I believe the human version of that is in the form of us being intentional and not judging our harvest results as quote unquote good or quote unquote bad, but also not rushing past the results and instead pausing to examine those results vis-a-vis questions. Questions like, what came to fruition this year that you're proud of? Or what never quite sprouted? And do you have any inclination as to why? Or what might you need to prune, replant, or nurture differently next season? That's the quiet wisdom that this time of year inspires. Reflection before replanting. And if you're willing to see your current outcomes not as verdicts, but as information that you can use as insight that can help you shape what comes next, new goals, adjusted expectations, or a refreshed process altogether. And I bring that up because this is an exercise that I am actively engaged in myself with my business and with my money. Because while you and I can't always control what grows, we can absolutely tend to the conditions that make thriving more likely. So, as you reflect on what you're harvesting right now in your work, in your business, or your money, it might be worth asking, what part of your process needs tending to next? And it just so happens that that's the kind of question that I help my clients explore. And if a full coaching engagement is just not a right fit for you right now, or just not in the budget right now, then book a 90-minute clarity session. I would love to help you figure out what comes next. How do you prepare for the next season? So send me a DM on Instagram, write clarity, and we will send you the link to book your session. But for now, that is a wrap for today, folks. As always, I thank you so much for listening and maybe even watching if you're joining us over there on YouTube. And if you've liked what you've heard and you would like to show appreciation for this podcast overall, or perhaps this particular episode, please do me a favor and do two things: subscribe to the channel and share it with other folks, because when you share it with those in your circle, you help us to reach more people than we ever could on our efforts alone. And if you happen to be listening on Apple Podcast, because the algorithm is what it is, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review, because it is the combination that helps us to get found more easily by people looking for podcasts that talk about money, business, and life. And of course, if you are on YouTube, please comment below, because we are, slowly but surely gathering more subscribers over there too. And here's a shout out for the More Than Money Workbook and its audio companion. I didn't do a full on, blurb about that earlier, but we are still looking for alpha testers. And the experience is designed to increase your financial clarity, confidence, and self-awareness. And I really do hope that you will add it to your money toolkit. And of course, if you'd like to buy me, well, maybe not so much an iced dirty chai latte right now, but a coffee, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Jaquette, buymeacoffee.com/Jaquette. Thanks again for listening or watching. I will be back with another episode, and I hope that you will too. Until then, remember, it's about more than money.